body cleanse we're going to do at the end of the month. I know some of you on the webinar tonight are doing a MasterClass, having surgery in the next couple of weeks. So this is even more important that we just really get our immune system really strong, because when you go into an environment like a hospital, which we think is sterile, actually the hospital is probably the place where there's greater, illness and there's greater weakness. What we want to do is we want to make sure you're really well and strong, because how well you're going to recover from a surgery or anything like that, it depends on how well you go into that. This afternoon, I want to share something with you. I don't know if they're on the call yet, but I've had 3 people today who had COVID last year, and one gentleman who came to see us had COVID. One of the first gentlemen who had COVID in the country. Was in a coma for 3 or 4 weeks. Bless him, and they saved his life. However, the conversation was it wasn't COVID that was going to kill him. It was his lifestyle that he's had for the last 20, 30 years. So this is what I want to share with you tonight. Is this whole thing, this whole hysteria right now, is what's going to keep you well is your level of health. And if you think of your body like a garbage bin, if you put a lot of putrefaction, you put a lot of garbage, you put a lot of toxicity in the garbage bin, that is a breeding ground for bacteria. We talked about that last March or April when we talked about detox then, and we talked about what sort of host you are, because your body is a host. Are you going to be, and if you think about a host, that's just someone who has someone come in your house and you meet and greet, you host them. Well, listen, what sort of host are you going to be for a virus? Are you going to be that one that meets and greets that virus and makes them really comfortable in your body? Or are you going to be a hostile host? Because I want tonight for you to be a hostile host to viruses. And the only way you're going to do that, instead of having a garbage bin, a body that's full of rubbish and putrefaction, you need to have a garbage bin that's empty, that's clean. Because what happens, a virus, bacteria, anything like that, they love dirty places. They love putrefaction. They survive. They thrive in a garbage bin that's full of rubbish. And if your body is clean, it's cleansed, it will not survive. Fact. And this is why the people who are struggling, the reason why people have been pushed off the cliff with COVID, and I know some of you in the room tonight have just literally had family members or someone who's passed away because of that. And I'm not going to focus on COVID tonight, but the point is because they're on the cliff's edge already. And the thing is, something like this, like any virus, will push them over the cliff's edge. And what we've learned over the last 12 months, we need to take forward with us to say that the only way we're going to keep ourselves really well is to keep our immune system strong, and that is not by putrefying our body. I know that I'll challenge some of your thoughts and beliefs tonight, but the point is a vaccination, everyone, will not solve the COVID problem we've got. A vaccination will not solve it. A vaccination going inside your body will actually stimulate an immune response, and they're hoping that that will increase your immunity to the virus. But we don't know. We don't know. Just watch this space. I'm not going to get in that conversation today, but I will be doing a conversation about the vaccines and about COVID and all that sort of stuff in a few weeks' time, because I know many of you in the room tonight have probably had letters or texts or messages to say, oh, because you're over 60 or because you're over 70, because you're over 80, you're vulnerable. Well, guess what? Vulnerability doesn't happen with age. Vulnerability happens because of illness. You can have the healthiest 80-year-olds, but the sickest 30-year-olds. The 30-year-old who's sick is vulnerable, not the healthy 80-year-old. So my point is tonight, when we're going to walk through this detox process, it's about you getting yourself strong, getting yourself resilient and resistant. Because the greater resilience and the greater resilience you've got, the resistance you've got, you're going to be able to fight anything. At 4:50 this afternoon, I did an adjustment with a gentleman whose son had COVID. He was sick for a few days. And he goes, Christian, I was standing with him. He said, I obviously got COVID, but he didn't notice it because he's, but the point is he got exposed to it. But why did he not feel anything? Because his resistance was high. Some of you had shared houses with people who have had the flu. Why didn't you get the flu? Because your body had resistance. And if you did get the flu, like your spouse or significant other, it's because your body wasn't as well as it should be. You see, we can all sneeze, all these things over people, but at the end of the day, if your body's got resistance, it's got walls and barriers up, you're fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend the next 25 minutes talking about how do we build resilience and resistance. And we're going to do that by clearing the garbage bin. How do we empty the garbage bin? Well, first things first, we need to recognize what we're being exposed to. We're talking physical, chemical, and mental toxicity. Because when your body's toxic, it cannot function properly. Just think about when you putrefy your brain with negative thoughts. What does that do to you? How does it make you feel? depression, anxiety, all they're just examples of effects of toxic thoughts. And then we've got traumas and we've got physical things. And what do you think a toxic lifestyle looks like when we don't move the body? So people with lymphedema, people with swelling, people with poor circulation, people with these things, or obesity, we've got fat, that's congealed tissue that's just holding on. We're just not moving. So that's toxic environment again. And then we've got chemistry. What are we putting in our body in terms of chemistry? Do we choose to put food that's more nature's way, or do we put food that's more man-made way? If you want to say God's way or nature's way, God's way or man's way. What are you deciding to ingest? So tonight is going to shift you. It's going to challenge you, because I know some of you have eaten the same sort of things, or you've moved the same way, or you've thought the same thoughts. You've hung around people who are quite negative. What does that feel like? It might challenge you. Tonight, we had a family tonight who went home when we talked about nutrition, and they had all these deficiencies and they had all these intolerances. They're inflamed, they're overweight, just really struggling with life. You know, the wife couldn't walk literally longer than 50, 100 yards because of pain and swelling in legs. But they went home and they cleared out they did a purge on their pantry, and they cleared out the food they knew was bad for them. And you know what was cool about that? They've taken it to the food bank, so there's no wastage, but they decided not to procrastinate. And the reason why I love that, because I don't want waste, but they gave to people who are happy to have that, who need something, but they decided that if it was in their house still, they would default back to that old behavior. And they're absolutely right. So here's the thing tonight is, if you've got around you things that are going to take you back to the old habits, just take it away. When we talk about giving up smoking, take it away. If you leave it in the cupboard, you can easily default to that bad habit. Something to think about. I come from a no waste environment. My parents told me, eat the rest of your dinner because there's people dying in Ethiopia who don't have food. So I was raised to finish my plate. Did that help me? Probably not. But I learned over time is my plate didn't have to be a big plate. Or my serving size didn't have to be as big. So I still don't waste. It's in me not to waste. My kids know they eat their dinner. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Katarina Cepinova. Some of you have known Katarina personally, you've seen her. We are doing a cleanse process at the moment. Katarina's, my diet's pretty good and Katarina's pretty diet, but she's had, today she's had a process of cleansing, and so have I, and the whole team are doing this cleanse process, and we're going to share that with you in the next couple of weeks, called the Ultimate Body Cleanse. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to have everyone do this without me doing it first. And I've done detoxing and cleansing and so on in the past, but I'm doing this very specific process. And I felt a bit jaded yesterday, and it was interesting because it was just a bit headachy because my body was obviously, dealing with a few things. The nutrition, the diet is not too much different than what I normally do, but you ready for this? My children made a gingerbread house for Christmas, and as I walked in, and walked past the gingerbread and just decided to break off a little bit of the gingerbread house, a couple of sweets on there, little jewels they put on there, and I put it in my mouth, just not thinking, and I took it out. I was like, my God, what am I doing? What am I doing? And I'm on a cleanse process, but actually that wasn't the thing I learned. What I learned is I would have just walked past there and probably done that 4 or 5 times, honestly thinking, I have a bit of that gingerbread house and a bit of the jewel, and I know a little bit of this, and just, if I did that 4 or 5 times, I would have had a lot of sugar. And so last night I had a sugar crux because I didn't realize how much I love this sweet tooth. So what I did is I got out the smoothie, made the smoothie, had my sweet, lovely, natural smoothie and dealt with my sweetness, and actually it was great. But in the past, what do I have done? Maybe a herbal tea with lemon ginger, maybe a bit of honey in it, dealing with that. I didn't realize how much that sweetness was creeping into my life. So we can talk about more of that, but this detox today is going to set us in place. For those who want to know more about that, we can talk about that, but it's going to set you in place for doing a cleanse. And to be fair, it's all about clearing your rubbish bin, and this will put you well ahead of the game being on here tonight. So Katarina, over to you. I look forward to running through this.
Thank you, Dr. Cushion, and so nice to see everybody here. Yes, Dr. Cushion mentioned we are all doing the cleanse in the Body Well team. So you have to forgive me. I might be sort of talking quite fast or quite slow because I'm obviously cleansing as we're speaking. But no, it's a good fun to do. And at least once a year, if not more, it's good to clean the rubbish bins. And we have to test it all, and we have to check it, and we have to make sure that it's all hunky-dory and fun for you to try and test as well. But it's good. I feel good. I feel pumped up, and I'm really pleased that the whole team team is pumped up about it. So we'll chat about that a bit later on. But we were here to talk about, of course, about a detox and how we can detox to prepare our body and get our body in a better shape. Now, I don't want you to think as a detox as something negative. I want you to think about detox as something that you are strengthening your body and making your body more resilient. Dr. Christian talked about cleaning the rubbish, and I think if we are sort of more aware of it, where these little pitfalls and little things can come from, we might be making better and more informed choices about certain things that we do and we don't do in our lives. And I think this is really just a snippets of things that I wanted to share with you tonight in the space of time that we have, that you might find very useful in the environment we're all in, and it's quite tricky to navigate through everything at the moment. So when we're talking about detox, it's being really aware of any potential dangers and toxins that might be coming our way from different ways and different formats, and how we can deal with it, and what can we do on a day-to-day basis to as much eliminate them, but also be aware of them so we don't physically input them into our bodies in massive quantities, if at all. So when we're talking about, toxins, where they come from, where major sources of toxin come from, they actually group into two areas. And this is something of interest to many of us to understand how they generate and where they come from. But the first ones are really the external, or something called exotoxins in biochemical terms. And this is all coming from external sources. So we are influenced, of course, we are influenced by our environment we live in, whether we live by busy roads or whether we live in an environment where we're exposed to certain chemicals from outside sources. Of course, these will become what they call an exotoxins. These are something that coming from outside to our bodies. And remember, this is not just what we breathe, but also something that we put into our mouth, that we eat, that we ingest and we take in, and also that we inhale. And remember, we're living at the moment in a situation where we are exposed to more dangers outside. So we're inhaling certain pathogen, inhaling certain external forces in. And then there is a secondary thing, which is also equally as important, something called an internal toxins or endotoxins. These are the toxins that we either generate as a byproduct of our chemical reactions in the body when we break down the food, or we generate them through bacteria or different sources in the body. So again, what we put in and how it breaks down and what happens with it inside the body will also generate some waste, some garbage that we need to get rid of. And we'll talk about it, where that generates and comes from. So we live in a climate, of course, I don't want to talk about COVID situation, but we have to be aware that, of course, that viral load from around us is going to be part of the toxic elements that are attacking our body. And that's why we're talking about resilience and making sure that our body is strong to withstand this toxic pressures, and toxic effects. So the viruses, and not just the COVID, but think about anything that over the years we would have come into contact with. Think about anything that you may have touched. Think about food poisoning like E. coli. Think about salmonella, anything like that. This is all viral pathogenic based from toxic elements outside that can affect us. Now, guess what? We're not succumbing to all of these toxic elements because our bodies become resilient and resistant. So we know that not all of us will be susceptible to salmonella or E. coli because our bodies as a host are strong enough to withstand. So what we're doing is trying to make sure the strength of resilience is there to withstand this viral load from different sources. We just have to be, of course, aware of them from the impact point of view. And then we have, of course, the environmental side of it, where it comes either lifestyle choices that we make, like smoking, that we can, of course, choose to not do or to do. Plastics that come from environmental side of it, whether we use them at home or where we come to contact with them. Think about alcohol. I mean, there's been some recent figures shown out that actually alcohol's been on a triple rise, not just a little increase, a triple rise in the last 12 months. And this is a major source of legal toxins that we actually put into our bodies next to the caffeine. Those are the two major sources. And if you think about it, it's quite easy to have a glass of wine because we are no longer have the same routine, and we might be creating different routines at home, which may incorporate things like a little bit of something here and a little bit of alcohol there. So just be mindful that that is also classed as a toxin because it's the biggest burden on the liver on a day-to-day basis. Think about molds that we may come to contact with with, whether it's at home or around us anywhere in sort of damp environments. And then think about the different types of food that we take in, whether it is something processed and smoked or fried. Of course, it's going to have an element of toxicity to us in our bodies. So anything that we ingest, anything that we're surrounded, coming from the outside to us, would be classed as an exotoxin in that basis. And think about, like Dr. Christian said, about the negativity and the negative thoughts and emotions. Again, the second highest rise in not just, of course, the classic viral infections, is actually in the mental health issues, because of the isolation, unfortunately, because of that lack of social contact. We as human creatures are naturally designed to have people around us, to hug people, to be close to people, and to have that social isolation is going to have an impact on our mental health. But unfortunately, because of this uncertainty and anxiety about things, this is getting out of control. And when they looked at the numbers, it wasn't just due to isolation, but it was due to fear. There is a lot of social media and media influence on our health and our negative thinking and potential other mental health in general, because they're giving us so much negative news about this and that and that. And this is all propagating a lot of negative feelings and negative emotions in us, and propagating a fear really against going out or sort of mixing with people. So just be mindful that the toxin coming from outside are not just in a physical or sort of tangible form, but also in a form of social media and other media. And this is really something to think about, is not to get influenced by these thoughts and not to get influenced by the social media and other negative emotions, because that is going to further propel and propagate negative emotions in our body as well. And then all of this would contribute to a cellular damage, to oxidative stress, to free radicals that are formed by that, because these are all toxic damages to our body that are causing our cells to damage over a period of time. If you think about chronic diseases and something that is ongoing in terms of tissue damage, it would start maybe 5-10 years before, if not longer, with oxidative damage. And this damage comes from toxic overload, whether we talked about the external or internal sources. So just think about it, that we are damaging ourselves and our body by this toxic overload. And that's why it's so important to clean that rubbish, to clean the garbage out, to not allow that process to happen in our body, because we do not wish the cell to degenerate and die. We wish to renew the cell, to be healthy, to make sure that that host is healthy, and to keep that resilience strong going forward. So where does the endotoxic go? Yes, Dr. Christian?
Because what's really important is, if people don't know what oxidative stress is, if you go back to the tomato, is what we're seeing there is a breakdown as a result of, like oxygen. If you put a bit of metal outside, it's going to rust. And what happens, the way the cell happens, it gets exposed to this stressors and oxidation breakdown, is a cell will change its shape and form. And that means it becomes dysfunctional, and what we call that is dysplastic in cellular talk, in pathology. Dysplastic means dysfunctional cell. And then when you look at the cell on the far right hand side, on the bottom right hand side, that's what we call a cell that's really dysfunctional. If that's a cell that changes its form and its function, it can then multiply and become metaplastic, and that's what they call cancer. So what we're talking about here tonight is, you change form and function of a cell, it then changes the form and function of living tissue, and that tissue then manifests itself into potentially cancerous cells and cancer tissue, and an organ that then becomes cancerous. And this is the crazy thing about this, is that your thoughts can change cellular function. Your food exposure change cellular function, and obviously your physical lack of activity. So if you think about this for a second, what are you bathing your cells in your body in? So for example, would you put a fish in a fish bowl and then fill that fish bowl up with coffee, tea, pollution, smoke, stress? What would happen to that fish? It would die. They did that in Canada. It was back in the years ago, wasn't it? There was this study where they saw this fish being washed up on the shore, and they found these fish all had these weird and wonderful tumors. It was crazy. But what they had to look at is actually what pollutants were they putting in the water. And they were so concerned because it wasn't the fish, it was the birds. They found the birds were dying off, but the birds were eating all these other diseases because they were eating these fish that had tumors in them. And so it's your environment that is key to this. what environment are you bathing your cells in? Because if you're bathing your cells in a fish bowl that should be clear and full of clear water, yeah, or are you bathing it in toxicity? And this is really important because all that does is propagate and accelerate that oxidative process and causes us to age more. So now the system's telling us that you get sick as you get older. No. You're getting sick because you're accelerating a degenerative process. And when your body's degenerative, there's no way they can have the resilience and resistance to fight a disease. And that's why when you look at people in hospitals who are literally in hospitals fighting for their life, their body is degenerative, it's inflamed, it's broken down, they are weak. But you look at people running around and they're exposed to the elements, they're okay. Different story, different bowl, fish bowl. What is your fish bowl? What are your cells being bathed in? Something to think about when you decide to eat or drink what you're going to do over the next 7 days. Thanks.
No, it's a very good point, Dr. Christian. And actually the data from NHS has been released this morning to say that most of the patients in the hospital now being looked after would have at least one chronic condition already. So most of the patients that they see, unfortunately, are more susceptible to any viral infection, are people who are already part of that degeneration process or have some chronic condition. So it's just an interesting point that they're finding more studies and more information behind and more data to support that evidence as well. Now, we talked about the exotoxins, or the external influence or external toxic loads. Then think about the internal toxic loads. We don't think that we produce any toxin, but we do. And we have to, that's why we pass the bowel movement every day. You know, when we speak on sort of regular basis with most of you, I ask you how often you pass the bowel movement, because I want to know how good you are at taking your rubbish out. Because what we want to make sure is that daily you should be passing your bowel movement, and that rubbish is not stuck inside you and actually being reabsorbed back in, because that's not what the ideal situation should be. Yeah, we should be, you know, cleaning the pipes, so to speak, and making sure that everything is moving naturally and everything is passing through. And because we make naturally a waste from food that we eat, that we break down, remember whatever we ingest has to also come out. So just think about, if you're not regular, is, you know, come and talk to me or Dr. Christian, and let's just making sure that we get things in motion, that they are regular there as well.
And so on that, if you just compare a baby, because I know many of you've got children, if you haven't, when you look at a child, I always remember this, the best lesson we teach is, what does the baby's poo look like? The first poo. It's the Marmite poo. And then what happens to change to French mustard? And then it becomes like seeded mustard poo, right? You're gonna think I'm talking really weird stuff, but the health of that child is determined by its elimination. And actually, the same applies to you. Your health, we know so many things, the clues we get given by your habits of elimination. So if your wee, your urine, has things in it that shouldn't be in there, we know your body's excreting certain elements and minerals, we know there's a problem. Or if it contains certain things. For example, if someone's blood in their urine, it's a problem, right? If they've got white blood cells in the urine, there's a problem, right? The point is, there's also other things that we eliminate. If you've got high sugar levels, pick it up all in urine. But also in your stool, if you're eliminating certain things, we know there's a massive problem. And the big thing that Katarina probably needs to, you know, she's hinted on it, is rhythm. Your body requires rhythm. You go to bed at a certain time, your body loves you for that, REM sleep. Your body digests in rhythm, just like you breathe in rhythm, and your heart beats in rhythm. You may not realize that, but you should have digestive rhythms. That means how your body processes and assimilates and appropriates food, and when you eliminate it. And the elimination part is actually more important than the ingestion part. The problem is, we focus so much on what we're eating, but really what we should be thinking about is what we're actually, how we're eliminating. So if you're not passing a bowel movement in the morning, there's a problem with rhythm, because the way your body processes and breaks down food is while you're sleeping. So in the morning, you're breaking the fast. So actually what you should be doing is the first part of your day between 4 a.m. to 12 midday is elimination time. And if you're not passing a bowel movement, then there is a problem with your movements. So again, more than happy to talk about it, not on this webinar, maybe on one-to-one sometime. Thanks, Katarina.
No problem. And then we talk about gut microbiome. We talk about it quite a lot, but the reason I'm talking about it in this sense is actually there has been a brand new South Korean study just come out this afternoon, which I was reading on the research group. And they were talking about that level of good bacteria that we always sort of talk about. But they found especially with related, and I'm sorry to relate it to COVID again, but this is such a prompt and such a sort of important factor here to think about, is that they researched and found out that those with imbalances and sort of pathogenic bacteria in our gut rather than the good bacteria and prevalence of those would be more susceptible to viral exposure. Now, if you think about it, it would kind of make a logical sense, because if we're creating a very poor microbiome, we are lowering our defenses in our gut and in our system, in our immunity, because 70% of our immune system is in our gut. So if our gut isn't shipshape and 100%, of course, our immune system cannot be 100% either to be resilient, to be strong enough to fight the pathogenic bacteria, whether it's viruses or anything else. So think about it.
70% of your immune system is around your gut, everyone. We scoot across these numbers and figures, but that is so vital.
So feed that, and you've got the power in your hands to actually feed your microbiome with the good things and influence it. And actually, if you didn't know that our microbiome can change in 1 week. So if you were to change your diet in 7 days, you can change your microbiome. So think about it, how quickly you could potentially influence your immunity and influence your microbiome and your strengths and your resilience. So just think about that as 7 days. It's not long, it's actually very quick. So that's why you normally take an antibiotics for 7 days, because you wipe it out. And that's why you have to then make sure that you've got everything right then after. But the point is, the 7 days is a very quick turnaround of our bacteria in our gut. So just making sure that if you're creating good habits, you place them and you keep regular with everything. Like Dr. Christian said about regularity and rhythm, there also should be a regularity and rhythm of eating pattern, especially now because we're in a different circumstances. Our habituals might have gone out of the window. So again, think about our good habits we have had prior to this and how we can sustain them throughout. Because our body is a rhythm, it's a 24-hour clock. So it works on that rhythmic pattern to making sure that we feed it in the right way and the right times. So when we digest at the right time at night, we can eliminate in the morning. And so it goes 24-hour clock again. So just be mindful that the 7 days is the crucial period where we can alter and change our microbiome and our immunity strength. And if you've come across any of these symptoms on this chart, and there's quite a lot of them, you would have experienced some sort of toxicity, whether it's endo or exotoxic based. You would have been a toxic at that point in time, or continuously if you're unfortunately in part of the conditions or part of the sort of symptoms you might be getting. But as myself and Dr. Christian would say, symptoms are just something that showcases imbalances in the body, and that's what we're looking for to correct, not just looking at the symptoms as such.
Tip of the iceberg, yeah.
So if you think about it, toxic symptoms are just telling us that we need to empty the garbage, that we need to cleanse, that we need to make sure that we reassess, that we look at our rhythm, that we look at our intake of food, that we look at our small habitual changes there. We can all contribute to make that resilient for us and take that garbage out on a day-to-day basis. Because guess what? We are actually, when we're talking about oxidative stress, with the level of toxin increasing in our body, we are then damaging more and more mitochondria, more and more DNA, and more of the cell damage that we saw in oxidative stress earlier. So just remember to bring it down by all these small steps that we can do on a day-to-day basis and making sure that the garbage is taken out. So what we want and what we're looking for is resilience, and building that resilience over a period of time, making sure that our tissue is nice and clean to repair, to regenerate, to create more energy. And in turn, of course, the weight is the side effect almost. I mean, I have a lot of people coming to me and say, I've got a weight issue. What can I do with weight? And rather than me just saying, right, you have to lose weight, I'm looking at, can we make sure that we change your habits to look at the garbage removal, to get the toxins out, to get the nutrients into, to balance everything. And then the weight almost in itself works itself out, because body cannot lose weight if you're toxic. Body is going to safeguard and keep everything as it can, because guess where the toxins are stored? Do you know, Dr. Christian, where the toxins are stored in the body?
Visceral fat.
Visceral fat. So when we accumulate visceral fat around our organs, around our middle area, That's where body stores it. So more toxicity level, more visceral fat.
So when
And
you
when
think
we've got
about it,
visceral
that's why
fat,
people who are obese really struggle with any immune compromise, because they're so toxic.
correct.
They're holding so much toxicity. They can't fight infection because their body's just so toxic. It's just that's why obesity is one of the biggest ones, the big problem.
Absolutely. And the toxicity is drip fed into the system all the time. There is not a cleansing process that's functioning 100%. So just to refresh you, let's look at a couple of the organs that are key. And that's why we're sort of focusing on sort of cleansing some of these organs, because those are the ones, the biggest soldiers in this whole process of elimination. And just to look at how we can support these organs as the key priority, as the key players in this whole thing. So think about it on the left-hand side, you've got all these organs that have to support you to withstand the toxins coming in, as we talked about, exotoxins. So think about your strength of your lungs, because you're breathing, you're inhaling potential toxins. Think about your gut and intestine. We talked about your microbiome, yeah? And think about the skin, because of course, anything you put on your skin or anything that you're exposed to, of course, is going to be penetrating through your pores inside. And then it all has to go to your biggest and the most important cleansing organ, which is your liver. And when we talk about liver is like the key star player in the whole body, because it has to cleanse everything. It has to cleanse all the toxic elements coming through the body. It has to cleanse the blood. It flushes through all the time. It has to cleanse your medication, everything you ingest. Lots of things are happening through the liver. And then once that process is starting, and it's quite a complex process, it's thousands of reactions happening on a day-to-day basis, then we're looking at how we're going to excrete these toxins. And we talked about the colon as a bowel movement, as cleansing of waste, but also think about your kidneys. That's why we urinate. That's why we check things that are coming out of your urine, because we want to make sure that the kidneys are doing a good job to cleanse everything. But a lot of people are not aware actually that your lungs are one of the key crucial elimination organs. And you might be thinking, how can you eliminate toxins through your lungs? But actually, if we breathe, we eliminate a lot of toxic elements out with the CO2. And a lot of us don't breathe very well. We breathe very shallowly and very short. And more anxiety there is in our body, more stress there is, more tighter our chest is, the less we breathe. So think about the simple things that you can do, like breathing, that actually expels the toxins as we breathe out. Yeah. And think about the connection between them all. Yeah, they are all in succession of each other, and they're all connected in the body, so then nothing works in isolation. So when we look at support, we're not supporting just one organ like a liver, even though the liver is one of the biggest important cleansing organs, is not the only one. Everything works in synergy. So what we're looking for is the supporting of the strength of the host. That's what Dr. Cushion's talking about. It's because everything works in synergy.
It's interesting because when we've worked in this, we've lived in this era of how amazed we are the fact that someone can take an organ out of the body, for example, adenoids, tonsils, or people can do, transplants of things like lungs and kidneys, but the liver, you can't. That tissue is just, it can't be replaced like any other tissue. And yet it's so vital in this toxic process, in elimination of toxicity. So I love that picture because, we know how important the heart is. We know how important, the lungs are, but actually the liver probably is even more important because it actually cleanses what we expose ourselves to. Nice one.
So what can we do? What are the simple tips that we can implement day to day? I'm going to share with you just a handful of them, just something that you can take home and sort of implement it and think about, I think, and maybe change and update or amend your way. So if none of you have done this, this is a very easy solution to kickstart your liver process in the morning. So instead of your potential having a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or having the first drink, a caffeinated drink, perhaps you might want to swap it to something like a hot water with lemon. This is going directly to the liver and having a kickstart to the liver. So the liver starts the elimination process to enable you to go and pass the stool in that period of 4 a.m. till 12 a.m. So what you're looking for is helping liver rather than hindering it by putting things into it. So, rather than getting up and having 2 cups of coffee and whatever else that you might have after, try to think about what can I do to help my liver rather than putting extra toxin and a load on it straight away.
A fishbowl, yeah.
And it's an easy way to do this, yeah? Antioxidants. We talked about the oxidative damage and the slowing, degeneration of tissues. Now, there are nutrients in food and vegetables of color, of any color you can think of, that provide the opposite, that provide a natural antidote. The nature is amazing because it gives us the antidote for aging, and that is in fruit and vegetables. And the better the colored on a plate, the better the choices there are.
People don't understand that. So oxidant, it breaks things down. Antioxidants
is the antidote to that.
So it's a bit like vitamin C. You might have heard as an antioxidant, right? So vitamin C is a very powerful one. But this is what this is all about. Yeah. How do we eliminate things? But how do we now introduce some other food that actually has an antioxidant, anti-aging process?
And think about how easy can it be to maybe put 3 different colors of vegetables on your plate. Rather than just having one vegetables of a lot of volume, try to think of maybe 3 vegetables on one plate and have a different color on it. So actually you're bringing that array of antioxidants through your food into your plate and into your diet on a daily basis. And the same for kids. I mean, there's no difference between the ages to actually intake the antioxidants in. And the more we age, the more we need them. You can also do the antioxidants and add them to your smoothies. This is a great way in addition to that as well, because you're adding your apples, you're adding your strawberries, your berries, your spinach in there. All colors are very, very important in mix.
So on that, really important when you're doing smoothies or juicing, when you're blending things, you're introducing air potentially, and air introduces oxidative stress to your fruit and vegetables. So it's really important when you do that is you drink it pretty much straight away. I'll give you an example. When you cut an apple, you slice an apple and you leave that apple, it goes brown because you've introduced a stress to the apple, to the cellular structure of the apple and oxygen, and that's why it goes brown. So that's an example of oxidative stress, like rust. Yeah. So when you have fruit and vegetables, if you're going to blend them, I'd recommend you drink that within sort of 10 to 15 minutes, 20 minutes, because the longer you leave it, you'll see it change color or go brown. It's because it's oxidized, it's broken down. So again, just something to think about when you prepare this sort of food. And also just on that with food, you know, when you cook it, yeah, you may not realize when you cook in olive oil should not be heated. And I know some of you have had, you know, the Jamie Olivers, I shouldn't be name dropped, but they cook in olive oil all this time, but they've switched. But when you cook in olive oil, the carbon chains of that break and it causes oxidation of whatever you're cooking. Olive oil is meant to have cold. So if you want to cook things, if you want to pan fry things quickly or saute things, anything, just use coconut oil. Yeah, that's the best thing you could use. Just another little tidbit to think about, because obviously when you cook food too, you're going to break it down, heat. Yeah, you're going to break it down. That causes oxidation of that, breaks it down. So again, the more raw the food is, and if you do have to cook it, just blanch it and keep it more living. And then it's easily for your body. It's much easier for your body to digest a bit of raw food than it is cooked, actually, when you think about that, because the living food has got, when it's more live, let's say it's fresh, it's the enzymes in that, the activity will interact with your body and your body can process that better, rather than actually totally killing something. Just imagine how much energy it would take your body to digest a bit of broccoli versus maybe a bit of steak, bit of meat. Yeah, you got something that's still got life in it, in a sense, broccoli, the sooner it's picked, versus something that's a bit of steak that's totally dead. And what that does to putrefaction inside your gut, because your gut can easily move that broccoli through, where meat tends to sit on your stomach and on your transverse colon in your gut. So something to think about. Cool, thanks, Karen.
No, and to add to that, Dr. Christian, think about the fruit and veggies is actually feeding for the microbiome. Our bacteria love to chomp on that, and that's why we're then putting a good bacteria, we're multiplying them through actually feeding them. So this is like a general feed for bacteria. The more veggies and fruit we can have, the more we're feeding them. So just think about it, how you can quickly influence in 7 days by actually just eating more plant-based rather than heavy meat-based or heavy sort of pollutant-based or sort of toxic-based or radical damage-based. So just think about it, how easily you can do by just changing your dietary preferences. We talked about the smoothies and juices, like Dr. Christian said, full of enzymes, full of living foods, full of living nutrients that your body takes up straight away. It also goes very quickly to the system because you're not physically chewing it. You're actually just swallowing it in a liquid form, so very easily digestible, and your bacteria will absolutely love it. Sugar and a processed food, of course, they are toxic load. We know that, especially the processed food, because we're not in charge of what they put in there. We're not in charge of what constituents you've got in there, all these hidden ingredients that are in there. But think about also ingredients you can influence and see, like sugar, because especially now when we're stressed, when our body's tired, stressed and overwhelmed, we reach for sugar quite naturally because we want a comfort. We want something to reassure us. And unfortunately, sugar hits our dopamine pathways to make us feel good. So it's quite easily done that we reach for more sugary snacks than we would have ever done. Not to mention that our habituals may have changed during the lockdown than not. So think about it. Are you actually intaking more sugar than you may have done previously? If so, is there a way that you can change things and introduce healthy alternatives? Because it's always are. Yeah, it's just a simple tweaks where we can. And a lot of people are actually not aware, but there is a huge amount of sugar in alcohol. So don't forget just removing sugar itself, but also think about, am I taking it in a liquid form and just taking it in alcohol form? Because every 2 or 3 glasses every evening accumulates to a week's worth of intake of sugar and calories. It's quite a number. So if you think about it, just trying to make a simple swaps and think about, is there sugar in my diet? What can I change and how I can do that? And if you're not sure, come and talk to me or come to Dr. Christian. We'll find a simple solutions for you or give you some sample ideas to take home with you to just make and introduce a new habit. And maybe just one small habit can actually change a huge, huge impact going forward as well.
My big thing for that would be to eat a little more regularly. And that'll normalize your sugar levels, because the only thing is when you want something quick, it always tends to be the worst stuff. And so instead of your sugar levels doing this, let's just more like this. When you eat more regularly, much better for you. Because I know, I'd have, if I walk past something, I'll happily eat food all day. I love food. I burn up calories just thinking. But for some of you, because when you're at home a lot, you can easily pick up the wrong things. So just prepare your food for the day. I know what you're going to have, but make sure you eat little and often. So I need to eat every 2 to 3 hours. Otherwise, I just start craving. And then what happens? I want to eat a horse when I go home. So if I go home and I can't eat straight away and I haven't eaten properly in the afternoon, I just want to eat something big. So that's why you always see me sitting on a smoothie in the afternoon, because it just normalizes my sugar levels, which means I don't have that. I want something now and I don't want something sugary.
And of course, regular exercise. Now, we may be in a different circumstances at the moment, but think about small things that you can do. Movement is very important in regulation of everything in the body and making sure that we detoxify and remove that rubbish out of our body. So whatever movement you can do, that's, that is, cumulatively important. Every small 5 minutes.
I love that picture. It's so far removed from what I actually was outside today. So, what we did today, and the team's doing it. So Leanne's a bit of a trooper. She went out and walked through the mud and just brought in some, other shoes and boots. But you can just literally, why don't you just stand up and walk on the spot watching telly for half an hour? Or what you could do, the best thing you could do, if you know what a trampette is, that's a mini trampoline. They're really cheap. You get 40, 50 quid online. And what you can do is you can just literally stand on a trampette and just hover up and down like this. It increases your lymphatic flow, increases circulation. It works out the muscles in your legs, which is a really powerful workout. But most importantly, it's going to stimulate that detox process. Because remember, when there's no motion, there's no lotion. When you're not moving, everything becomes stagnant. And the whole idea of exercise is to get flow, lymphatic flow, circulation flow, everything pushing things around your body and circulating, so then you can eliminate it.
But also think about, movement of oxygen in your body, because that oxygen is going to keep you more sort of concentrated, more focused, more productive, whatever you want to do in the day. And it regenerates. When we talked about oxidative stress, oxygen itself is regenerating as well. So what we're looking for is increasing a level of oxygen through the blood, through the motion, through the circulation as well. Then sleep and breathe. Those are the two things that, are so easy to implement. Without change of maybe habits or change of timings now, we might be going to bed a bit later on because we can get up a bit later on because we're not commuting anymore. Trying to think about the pattern that should be remaining the same. You should go into bed at the same time and you should be getting up in the morning at the same time. And that's the easiest way you can start to regulate your body clock and body motion in the body. And sleeping is very, very important for regeneration. When we talk about oxidative stress, that's the time that body naturally repairs, eliminates, it breaks everything down. So in the morning you can pass the bowel and actually move everything. But during the night, body has to do lots of processes to prepare you for that. But it also regenerates through that time because you're not eating, you're not walking, you're not doing anything. You're in a rest mode, in a parasympathetic state, in a complete REM sleep state. So this is the time that body lets go of everything emotionally, physically, and actually repairs naturally. So think about the timing that you go to bed and think about the timing that you wake up, and aim for 8 hours at least. I mean, it's very difficult to get for 8 hours for a lot of you. I know it's not easy for various reasons, but just try to have at least a regular pattern and aim for the regular amount of hours every night. And trying to remember the glass of wine before bedtime is not going to improve that sleep, unfortunately. It's going to actually add to that toxic load through the night. So the body has to work even harder. So that's a one tip. And the second tip I would give you is, we talked about the breathing. If you've never done it before, and Dr. Christian might also point you in that direction as much as me, try something called the diaphragmatic breathing. And it's easy. I can send a link to Dr. Christian or all of you. It's breathing from the inner, underneath your diaphragm, and from the diaphragm all the way up and all the way down, because a lot of us don't actually breathe very deeply. We breathe shallowly, and that doesn't create the oxygen flow and circulation in our bodies as well. So even 4 or 5 minutes a day is going to make that movement and changes in the body as well. And then, of course, reduce any toxic load that we may have from external sources. Think about major things are now not even loading on the skin, because a lot of us are not sort of going out much. But think about the air pollution in the house. I would say air a lot of things in the house, especially if you're at home all the time, making sure that you're opening your windows a little bit, making sure that you get your circulation of air inside the house. If you want to have a depurifiers or humidifiers or anything else in the house just to clean the air, that's fine, but we're indoors a lot more. Think about the cleaning products you use at the moment, because again, we're at home a lot more, so we might be using that a lot more than we have done before. Again, is it absolutely necessary to use those products all the time? Are you exposed more and putting toxic load on your body that you might have done before? So think about those little things that you can change, and how much you can be exposed internally in the house to those toxic elements as well, because these are things that you can change. So it's very, very easy to think about 1 or 2 things that you may change. And there are cleaner brands on the market. If you want to look at swapping over to cleaning products, or come and ask me, I'll give you some tips on which ones. But just, just to get a fresh air into the house is as important. And then the little tips, of course, skin brushing. This is what Dr. Christian mentioned earlier, the sort of a pushing of lymphatic system and encouraging lymphatic system to kind of flow a lot more. You can get those brushes in any supermarket. They are very sort of hand little brushes that you can put your hand through like a loafer, or even loafer itself, and try to skin brush dry skin just before shower, so that actually towards the heart, you're moving towards the heart to encourage the flow of lymphatic system. And it's a very, very easy solution to trying to boost your lymphatic system a little bit more if you're a little bit more static as well. And you can do that as many times before shower as you like. That's not a problem. And then, of course, Dr. Christian will tell you more about this, regular adjustments, massages when possible, when it's suitable, when it's good, because again, that increases the flow of everything in the body, increases the changes, and helps to eliminate any toxic wastage that is in your joints, in your areas, that needs to come out of the body as well. Wouldn't you agree, Dr. Christian, on that one?
Okay, so my big thing is it's all about, again, it's motion is lotion, right? It always gets back, whether it's your gut, whether it's joints, whether it's your heart. You think about arteries always work better when there's smooth blood running through them. The gut, we know that from tonight, and we know joints. Just compare a living person versus a dead person. What's the difference in stiffness? Rigor mortis, they're done. You're all living, you've got to move. The body's a dynamic structure. So, Katarina, you've got the list there, the last list.
Yes, there is, yeah.
Today. So there's 8 things. Just commit to 4 that you could start working on as of tomorrow, because actually just make a conscious thing. I want you to write them down, and if you want, we can email them to you if you want us to email, but the best is tonight, write 4 things down, turn to the person left or right of you and say, right, I'm going to do these 4, but I want you to write it down, because you'll forget them tomorrow. Trust me, 90% of us will just go, what were those 4 that I was thinking about? Because that's what people do, to use resolutions. So think of 4 that you can commit to just over the next week for me, because all I want you to do, in fact, you're not doing it for me, do it for yourself, but what we're going to do is commit to 4 that you could sustain. Now, I know some of you are real warriors, you'll commit to all these, no problem. Yeah. But commit to 4, because then what you're doing is you're moving your body to a place where the garbage bin is becoming empty. And if we can change the microbiome in your gut in 7 days, my goodness, you've got a great chance to be healthy and stronger and have greater immunity. And this is why we want to do this masterclass now, because we know we've been through the putrefaction, you had all your treats, and if you have chocolate at home still, you have a choice. You can either eat it and really screw your metabolism up even more now and delay, or you just decide to just get rid of it. It's probably a few pounds of chocolate, as in
almond spice.
Money, not a few pounds of weight, I hope. But you have a choice. You can procrastinate on this, or you can take action. The reason we would love you to do that is because we want you to prepare yourself for an ultimate body cleanse. We are going to do a cleansing process, which will only build on what we talked about tonight. And we'd love you to be part of that, because we're going to have a certain amount of people who can do it, because we're going to do a daily coaching on that. We're going to have recipes, all sorts of things in place to make this easy for you, because I know that everyone will lose weight from it. Everyone will become cleaner from it. Everyone will think more clearly on it. And I know that as a result of it, your immunity will be stronger. So these 8 things that Katarina's just listed there today, just pick 4, and then we'll shift things. Because in the practice, in every other medical practice, we've got people dying. Yeah, we've had no one like that. Why is that? Is because you're on this call tonight because you're educated, you have the information, you're empowered to make choices. And the reason why you come and see us is because you decided that you want to be proactive with your health. So what are you going to be proactive with today? Those 4 things to shift you, because now we're the 12th of January. Let's not wait till the end of the month. Yeah, let's just act on that now. So what 4 things you're going to do? So when I see you next, just I'm going to ask you those 4 things. So if you write them down, there's increasing the chances of you doing that, increases by 70 to 80% by just writing them down, because your brain now is engaged in something. If you just think about it, go, I'll think about it later, it's done. The chances, 10%. So what are your 4? Yeah, mine, simple, is water. You saw me drinking. I am actually really bad, but my son lost my water bottle, so I got a new water bottle, right? So that's me. Sugar, not that I'm a sugar freak, but I just got to make sure consciously I don't go home and dip into that the gingerbread house, right? Because it's around me. Exercise is a no-brainer for me. Sleep, because actually sleep has shifted for me. Got a little later, yeah. And making sure that the increase the antioxidants, yeah, that's for me. So what are your 4? What are your 4? What's the next slide, Katarina? Okay. So we can test it. It's measurable. It's basically, the way to skin's the biggest organ in your body, but hair, and it's some of you had this test done. I've had this test done 3 times over the last 3 years. It basically, what it does, it measures toxic load in your body, because what it does, it takes the dead skin, because hair acts like a respiratory record for minerals that your body could be getting rid of as a result of toxicity. Because the crazy thing is, your body could be depleting itself of certain things because it's toxic, having to cope. And then it also picks up other things in your hair that tells us what we need to reintroduce into your body, because you're probably going to be deficient in something. So it picks up toxicities and also deficiencies. We've had people do their hair mineral analysis and found out they've got lead, yeah, or they've got like huge amounts of aluminium that's come from their water pipes. So they were able to change them. Thank goodness they could, because they were becoming hugely toxic. And actually, as soon as we changed that, their water supply, it's amazing how all their other health issues started to clear up, all of them. Okay, so we would, to finish with, and Katarina, thank you for your time. It's been amazing, because actually I always get something out of the masterclasses, and we are going to do a cleanse. We're going to do that at the end of the month. If you are eager and keen and ready, I was not when they said we're just going to do it. In fact, we decided on Saturday for Monday. And I thought, I want to be organized, want to make sure I've got everything ready and line things up so it makes it easy, because I love systems and making it organized. But the lesson I got from it, as soon as I said, okay, I'll do it. As soon as I decided to do it, actually, I relaxed about it and realized how, you know what? it may not be perfect, but actually I created that perfection of the program and go, actually, yeah, Monday I'm ready. It's just because I was paralyzing it by thought. So if you're on the edge of doing it and you think, oh, should I, shouldn't I? All I'm going to do is what I had colleagues to do with me. They said, Christian, you're just doing this. And the decision was then easier. So if you're on the edge, just say, on the fringe, just say, okay, I'm going to do it. What do I need to do? All I want to know from you is the question is, what next? And we'll do 10 days of a cleanse. There will be a specific process to follow, some supplementation to accelerate and to the cleansing process, and also things you can do to help restore your microbiome, cleanse old bad parasites, but actually introduce better bacteria in your gut. And it's amazing because actually today I feel clearer today. So usually people say day two, day three can be tough, but actually I'm feeling pretty good. So tonight, get on top of this and it makes that process so much easier for you. It's a 10-day process. We're going to start that in about 2 weeks' time. I'd love to have them there, but tonight is a place to start. If you've never had a hand mineral analysis, if you've never had a nutritional review, it's probably a good idea to do that, because what Katarina is also committed to doing in this next month, some of you had supplementation, whether it's through Bodywell or elsewhere, and lots of different things. We discovered that just recently. A couple of people on the call tonight that take, spending 350 pounds a month just on supplements, on all these things they're getting from somewhere. Yep, everywhere. And we sat down and we looked at it and we got it down to 3 major supplements. So it reduced the overhead too. We saved a couple of £1,000 a year for those people. And it was amazing to go through that. So through Katarina, by literally methodically going through things, because otherwise we end up with a thing like called polypharmacy, because that's what happens. When people start taking drugs and medication, when do they ever stop? They usually keep adding things. Well, this is like a review. And we're doing that over the next month. So if you'd like that too, more than happy to do that for you. So I think I just want to finish there. Katarina, is there anything else you want to add before we finish?
No, I think I just want to say thank you so much for everybody. Nice to see everybody, and keep up and positive thought. Yeah, every day start with a positive thought.
Yeah. And nice one. Thank you, everyone. And Katarina, really appreciate your time, because I know you've been cleansing today, and that can be a little more demanding for some of us. So everyone, great to see you today. And until next time, God bless. Thanks for your time.
Nice to see everybody. I'll see you all soon.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Appreciated. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. That was great. Bye.
Thanks, Katarina. Thanks, Christian.
Nice to see everybody.